My name is Murray Carter. I'm a bladesmith, and I've been forging knives for 31 years. As a young boy growing up in Nova Scotia, Canada, and as a Boy Scout, I had the opportunity to use a lot of pocket knives. And I was really fascinated with weapons and the Knights of the Round Table and the Battle of Midway and so on and so forth. So I was very interested in knives, and I didn't give it much thought in my teen years. But when I went to Japan when I was 18 years old to study karate, and I had an unfortunate accident where I dislocated my left knee fairly early on in that trip. I think it was within the first month. And as a result, I was immobile and started to study the language. But prior to that accident happening, I was scooting around the town of Kumamoto, where I was in Japan, the southern island of Kyushu in Japan. And I had this chance encounter with a bladesmith whose family had been bladesmithing for over 400 years. And while I was learning Japanese in a cast on my left leg, I was thinking, oh, these words are going to be really handy to communicate to Mr. Sakemoto, so I could tell him that I'm really interested in knives and I'd really like to learn from him. So I kind of had a motivation right away for studying the language. And then once I got better and was mobile again, I went back to that shop and asked him to show me some things. And during that 6 years, I apprenticed and learned everything I could about the industry. And it was kind of like a atypical apprenticeship, in so much that I didn't spend all 6 years just with him. He was kind of more like a coach, where he showed me what he knew, and then he would say, look, okay, now that you know how to do this, I want you to travel to this industrial center because they're famous for such and such. For example, they're famous for forge welding. And so I would either go there for a few days at a time, or in some cases a few weeks at a time, and because he would make the introduction. I would learn as much as I could, come back to like the home forge, Mr. Sakemoto's forge, practice what I had learned. And then maybe a few months after that, he would say, okay, now you understand how to do forge welding. Now I want you to go to, like, for example, Seki City, Japan, where you're going to learn about mass production and the exportation of knives, for example. Or he might have sent me to Sakai, near Osaka, Japan, to learn fine polishing, straightening, and finishing of the knives. So in that way, he was kind of an atypical teacher, in that he availed me to learn from all these other masters as well, and then always come back and then practice what I had learned at his forge. And basically, after 6 years of that type of apprenticeship, he literally kind of announced to me one day that he wanted me to be the 17th generation Yoshimoto bladesmith. The steel that we prefer to use here at Carter Cutlery is made by Hitachi Metalworks. Their acceptable levels of phosphorus and sulfur are almost 10 times more stringent than any of the competitor steels out there. We start off with the world's cleanest steel. We forge it down in a very exacting process, a stepping down process with temperature. We are very exact to anneal it, quench it in water, and temper it over the fire, and then make sure it's as straight as we can make it. And we grind it as thin as we dare grind it. And lastly, we hand hone the edge with the world's finest abrasives, and we put the best primary edge on that knife we can. And we get a knife that performs better in most cases than people could have expected. Combine that with some proprietary blade designs, taking into features like the Carter safety heel or the Carter elbow blade design, and ergonomic handles, and you really have kitchen knives that will perform pretty much better than anything that's out there. When I was approached by Spyderco to do a kitchen knife collaboration with them, I was delighted. Spyderco has a long track record of innovation in the market, and using top-rate materials, and especially cutting-edge steels, and always I could tell that Spyderco was dedicated from the beginning to really scary, sharp knives. But more importantly, or just as importantly, I saw that Spyderco, as with myself, took customer service and customer satisfaction very, very seriously. And that they realized that without happy, satisfied customers, their company really had no foundation. And so, the mesh of personalities, the mesh of business philosophy, the mesh of really good business ethics was why I am so convinced that this collaboration really was, perfect for all of us. I've enjoyed this collaboration with Spyderco immensely, and we have created some amazing blades. And I invite you all to get one of our kitchen knives and discover a finer level of cutting and be welcomed into kind of this inner circle membership of people who are using really high performance knives.